Well, hi again, it's your buddy Bob. I've got another episode of the Rock and Roll Travelogue. We're having so much fun as we're out about the country trying to find the pop and rock artists of the 1950s to 1990s. I'm so excited about today because we are in a very important place in the music world. We're in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Now, this city is part of the Quad Cities known as the Shoals. It's on the Tennessee River near the border with Tennessee. And we'll have something to say about all four cities in this episode as they're all important musically. So this area is so famous because musically, there are two major studios here. Pop and rock stars from all over the world have come here to record, mainly because of the great studio musicians. So let's start with a studio called Fame at 603 East Avalon in Muscle Shoals. Now, Fame stands for Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises. Florence is one of the Shoals, so F-A-M-E, Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises. The driving force of the studio, which, by the way, still exists, the driving force was Rick Hall. Now, I'm not permitted to use pictures inside the studio, so this is a pamphlet telling us all about the Fame studios. Fame was the studio with a classic drum sound, and the first hit out of there in 1961, this is a great story, it was by a hotel bellman from the area named Arthur Alexander. Man, he had a hit on You Better Move On. Atlanta's Tommy Rowe recorded Everybody here in 1963. In later years, Steven Tyler, Alison Krauss, Michael McDonald, Demi Lovato, and Greg Allman all recorded here. Greg's brother Dwayne recorded here as well, and he'd hang out, even sleeping on the floor at times. Mac Davis came to Muscle Shoals to record an album. Now, at the time, there was only one hotel in town, a Holiday Inn. Mac Davis stayed with the Halls of Fame. The album that Mac gave us, by the way, had a hit single on it, went to number one in 1972 called Baby Don't Get Hooked on Me. Rick Hall's widow, Linda, told me that one of her favorite stories was about Clarence Carter in the late 1960s. Clarence was blind, had his biggest hit in the late 60s called Patches, and the lyrics had to be whispered in his ear because he got to the recording session too late to prepare. So after that, the songs were all written in Braille for him. Jerry Wexler, the highly influential music producer from Atlantic Records, would bring artists to fame, such as Wilson Pickett. His Mustang Sally Ride was recorded at Fame, and Aretha Franklin was brought here by Wexler as well. He's credited, Wexler is, with coming up with the term rhythm and blues. And he signed dozens of big artists to Atlantic Records, from Ray Charles, the Allman Brothers, Led Zeppelin, Dire Straits, and many more. Jerry Wexler is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, Aretha Franklin would record her first big pop hit here, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Loved You, but it would be the only song she recorded here as a fight broke out during the recording session in the studio involving Aretha's then-husband and others. So Wexler vowed never to record here again. Wexler's name will pop up again in this segment of Rock and Roll Travelogue, so stay tuned. Well, now we're over to the Muscle Shoals Sound Studio at 3614 Jackson Highway over in Sheffield, Alabama, one of the other towns in the Shoals. Now, this studio started in 1969 with several musicians from Fame leaving there and starting their own place. These musicians were the Muscle Shoals Rhythm Section, later known as the Swampers. These musicians, with the help of, Jerry Wexler again, put up the money to buy an old coffin factory, which ironically was across the street from a cemetery on Jackson Highway. You can't make this stuff up. The first album recorded here was by Cher, called 3614 Jackson Highway. It featured on the cover many people that you see right here. Many of the musicians and the producers, along with Jerry Wexler and Sonny Bono, Cher's husband at the time. Now, I have no permission to use the pictures inside, so again, this is a pamphlet, and here's the picture. I want to talk about some of those pictured here because it's an amazing story. Tom Dowd produced the album. Dowd, over the years, became a top recording engineer. He's credited with using multi-track recording. Now, what few realize about Tom Dowd is that prior to working in the recording industry, he worked on the Manhattan Project. This was the project that developed the atomic bomb. Wow, what a story. What a talent. Tom Dowd is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Another notable is Donna Jean Godchaux from nearby Florence, one of the Shoals. She was a session singer at the studio and also sang background on Elvis records, including Suspicious Minds. And later, Donna became the only female member of the Grateful Dead. More on the Dead in a future rock and roll travelogue. Well, the first big hit produced at Muscle Shoals Sound Studios was Take a Letter Maria by R.B. Greaves in 1969. This is a great story. Later that year, the Rolling Stones arrived in town to record 3 songs, including Wild Horses, the #1 hit Brown Sugar, and You Gotta Move, all off the Sticky Fingers album. These songs were recorded in the tiny studio over 13 hours. Stax Records, that we visited earlier in Memphis, sent the Staple Singers to record their smash hits, Respect Yourself and I'll Take You There, right here at Muscle Shoals Sound Studio. The superstar Paul Simon liked what he was hearing, so he came to Muscle Shoals Sound Studio to record Kodachrome and Loves Me Like a Rock in the early 70s. And soon after, he and the Swampers did some work on his Still Crazy after all these years. Leonard Skinner recorded here. Bob Seger recorded Night Moves here. Rod Stewart recorded A Night on the Town with the hit single Tonight's the Night at Muscle Shoals Sound Studio. In fact, he called the place, quote, a tiny room with colored lights. Well, here's the front yard of the studios today at 3614 Jackson Highway in Sheffield, Alabama. Times change, and the studios, for various reasons, couldn't keep up. It became an appliance store, then a personal residence. And then in 2013, they got $1 million from Beats and Dr. Dre to preserve it as a music museum. It's owned by a local foundation. The property is on the National Register of Historic Places. What a story. These 2 studios in this small town in Alabama. Amazing, huh? But there's more rock and roll history in the Shoals. Of the 4 towns in the Shoals, we've been in Muscle Shoals, Sheffield, and we've talked about Florence, as in the name of the famed studio. So let's drive over to the 4th town, Tuscumbia. A young man named Percy Tyrone Sledge from Layton, Alabama, not far from the Shoals, worked at a hospital in Tuscumbia called Colbert County Hospital. It's now Helen Keller Hospital, named after the Tuscumbia native. And here is Helen Keller's home in Tuscumbia. If you've forgotten, Helen Keller lost both her sight and hearing and became a famous author, lecturer, and advocate for the disabled. Percy Tyrone Sledge recorded his biggest song in 1966, When a Man Loves a Woman. He recorded it at a studio in Sheffield owned by a local DJ. Now, Rick Hall, we've talked about him, from the famed studios, liked it so much that he coaxed Jerry Wexler again of Atlantic Records to release it. And it became Atlantic's first #1 hit. Thanks, Rick. The song is rated in the top 100 on Rolling Stone magazine's all-time best songs. Percy Sledge lived just outside of the Shoals in Layton, Alabama, about 15 miles from the Shoals. He sang in the church choir at this church before he was a star, Galilee Baptist on old Highway 20, and he lived right down the street from the church. The street where Percy lived is now called, well, of course, Percy Sledge Street. And the home where he lived is pictured here. Now, in 2007, it and 2 others burned down, but the neighbors tell me that his was rebuilt, and you see it in this picture. Wow, what an episode of Rock and Roll Travelogue. Time for me to bounce, but we've got more travels and more fun next time. Until then, this is your buddy Bob saying good heart and stout luck.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.